The Senate will come to order. Senator Westland.
Mr. President, I impose a call of the Senate.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Westland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in all absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, if you be so kind as to stand. In our Senate tradition, we start with prayer, and today's chaplain is Pastor Andrew Langseth from Grace Evangelical Free Church in Stewartville, Minnesota. And following the prayer, as a gentle reminder, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father and gracious God, it's an honor to come before you, the creator of heaven and earth, on behalf of today's session. And so, Father, I ask for the very things that you look for in those bearing your image. As described in your word from the prophet Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, you have shown and told us what you, God, desire, what is good and right, to do justice, to love kindness and mercy, and to walk humbly before you. And so I ask for justice to be done in the conversations and topics on the agenda for today, for right and proper outcomes. I ask for kindness and mercy to be extended and celebrated, to be sought intentionally, and pray, Father, for a humility uncommon to this generation, that each breath, each blessing, and each moment is a gift from and belongs to you. So I pray that you'd bless the conversations and deliberations of today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, members. The secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Clark, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hochschild, Herr, Heinzmann, Hemmingson Jaeger, Hoffman, Holmstrom, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson Stewart, Klein, Curran, Kroon, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, Mayquaid, McEwen, Miller, Mohammed, Murphy, Nelson, Verbaten, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Members, a quorum is present. The following members intend to vote from a remote location pursuant to Rule 40.7. Senators Carlson, Port, and Young. Members, if you'd like to follow along, I'm reading from today's Senate agenda, dated Thursday, May 14th, 2026. We will begin at the second order of business, which is executive and official communications. The following communications were received and referred as indicated. Members, we'll now proceed to the third order of business, which is messages from the House. The Secretary will read the message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House has acceded to the request of the Senate for the appointment of a conference committee consisting of 4 members of the House on the amendments adopted by the House to the following Senate file. Senate File Number 4282, a bill for an act relating to forecast adjustments, making forecast adjustments to pre-kindergarten through grade 12 education programs, etc. There has been appointed as such committee on the part of the House Joachim, Noor, Kresha, and Shoemaker. Senate File Number 4282 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick Duffy Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, there's no action required. We'll now move to the fifth order of business, which is reports of committees. Senator Westland? Oh, Senator Murphy. Senator Murphy, the motion to adopt the committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee reports printed in the agenda be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members will now go to the seventh order of business, which is second reading of House bills. The Secretary will read the House file numbers.
House File Numbers 4074, 4138, and 5074.
The House files have been given their second reading. Now moving to the eighth order of business, which is introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated without any modifications. Now moving to the ninth order of business, motions and resolutions. We will adopt the author's motion as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Duckworth for motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 5.1, I move that Senate File Number 4515 be withdrawn from the Committee on Rules and Administration, given a second reading, and placed on general orders.
Any other discussion on the Duckworth motion?
If I can just maybe give some context, Mr. President.
Please, Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just briefly, this is the meat raffle bill. Not looking to do anything other than get it put on general orders so that in the future, if we get into a position where we can take action on it, we can. It's a great bipartisan bill. It's the people's bill. They'd like to see us get it done. Just getting it to general orders will have it in a position to do so if we collectively decide that's what we want to do. That's all I've got, Mr. President, and I would request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any other discussion on the Duckworth motion? And Senator Duckworth, you sure you want a roll call?
I will withdraw the roll call.
All in favor of the Duckworth motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. We will now... Okay, but don't I need to give the bill a second? It's given the second reading already. Okay. Members, the Secretary will give the bill its second reading.
Senate File Number 4515.
Has been given. Members, I'll now go to Senator Marty for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File 2433, number 60 on general orders, be stricken and re-referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senator Marty, you want this bill re-referred to the Committee on Finance, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. Members, the Marty motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members remaining under motions and resolutions, I'll now call on Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to take up the confirmation calendar.
To that motion of taking up the confirmation calendar, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. I'll now call on the senators making those motions. I'll start with Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that the report from the Committee on Labor reported April 7th, 2026, pertaining to appointments be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator McEwen for the next motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that the foregoing report be now adopted.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The next motion, Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that in accordance with the report from the Committee on Labor reported April 7th, 2026, the Senate, having given its advice, do now consent to and confirm the appointment of the Board of Electricity.
Senator McEwen, now will you give me more information about your motion and for those whom you are seeking to have confirmed?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, the Minnesota Board of Electricity adopts the electrical code, including any amendments. It adopts rules that regulate the licensure or registration of the electrical industry and issues final interpretations of the electrical code. The board includes 12 members, 11 appointed by the governor and 1 appointed by the commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry. Board members serve 3-year terms with the terms ending on December 31st. Members appointed by the governor are limited to 3 consecutive terms. The nominees before you for the Board of Electricity advanced out of committee on March 26, 2026 as a slate on a voice vote without vocal opposition. The members to be considered for confirmation today include Keith Colvard, Sarah Gudmunson, Steve Haiby, Jeff Heimerl, Travis Thul, and Desiree Weigel. I ask for your support.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the appointments are confirmed. The next set of confirmations, Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that the report from the Committee on Labor reported April 7th, 2026, pertaining to appointments be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The next motion, Senator McEwen.
Mr. President, I move that the foregoing report now be adopted.
So we want to take it off the table. Senator McEwen. So Senator McEwen moved that the foregoing report be now adopted. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Now we're on the third motion. Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I now move that in accordance with the report from the Committee on Labor, reported April 7th, 2026, the Senate, having given its advice, do now consent to and affirm the appointment of the Board of High Pressure Systems. And I can continue on with some description if you would like, Mr. President, at this time.
That'd be great, Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much. Members, the Board of High Pressure Piping Systems adopts and amends the High Pressure Piping Code and Rules, reviews and issues requests for final interpretations, regulates the licensure or registration of high pressure piping contractors, journeymen, and other persons engaged in the design, installation, and alteration of high pressure piping systems, and advises the Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry regarding educational requirements for high pressure piping inspectors. This board consists of 13 members, including the Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry, and 12 members appointed by the Governor. High pressure piping systems are critical in industries that handle extreme temperatures, corrosive substances, and volatile chemicals. Whether in oil and gas, power generation, or petrochemicals, these piping systems must meet stringent safety and performance standards. So, members, the nominees for the Board of Electricity advanced out of committee on March 26, 2026. As a slate on a voice vote without vocal opposition. And the members before us today for appointment are Joseph Abbot, Aubrey Archer, Edgar Castro, Sam Christenson, Erik Hansen, Robert Linde, Matthew Marquis, Patrick McCullough, Jacob Pettit, Roger Thein, Dennis Theisen, and Mark Worms. I ask for your support.
Any discussion on the McEwen motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the individuals are confirmed. I'll now go to Senator Latch. Senator Latch, for your motion.
Mr. President, I move that the appointment of notaries public received May 4th, 2026 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Latch, for your second motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now consent to and confirm the appointments of the notaries public.
And Senator Latch, will you describe those who, or describe your motion, those you are seeking to have confirmed?
Mr. President, despite Senator Abler's request, I'm not going to read the list of the many, many notaries public in the state of Minnesota. This is something we do pretty routinely. Everyone who is a notary public has the authority to sign an affidavit, essentially, that the person who is attempting to sign the document is, in fact, the person who they say they are. So they're supposed to verify identity. They don't verify the content of the document, just that the person signing it is who they say they are. It is many people, secretaries, bank tellers, those kind of things all around the state, legal offices and so on. They are registered and identified through the Secretary of State's office, so the information on who they are is public, but they formally need to be confirmed. I ask for your support.
Any other discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the appointments are confirmed. I will now go to Senator Swazinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the report from the Committee on Ed Policy, reported May 4th, 2026, pertaining to the appointment of the School Trust Lands Director, be taken from the table.
To that motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Your second motion, Senator Swazinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the foregoing report be now adopted.
On the adoption of the foregoing report, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Your third motion, Senator Swazinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that in accordance with the report from the Committee on Education Policy reported May 4th, 2026, the Senate, having given its advice, do now consent to and confirm the appointments of the School Trust Lands Director to Aaron Vande.
All right, Senator Swazinski, to your motion, if you can tell us about the candidate.
Mr. Vande has been appointed to be director for the Office of School Trust Lands until the end of 2029. He has been with the School Trust Lands Office since 2012 and the director since 2015, and has done amazing work for all of our students and managing our trust lands for the state of Minnesota. Mr. Vande has made time to inform both the Education Finance Committee and the policy committees about the trust lands and work to increase transparency to the office, and I highly recommend his final confirmation, given that we need a seasoned director to navigate the waters we'll be going through this election cycle with respect to the constitutional amendment.
Any further discussion on Senator Swazinski's motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the confirmations are confirmed. There's a motion to read at the desk. The secretary will read the motion at the desk.
Senator Hoffman moves that his name be stricken as chief author and the name of Senator Wickland be added as chief author to Senate File number 962.
To that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members will now go to Senator Murphy for a designation of special orders. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bills be made special orders for immediate consideration.
Members, the special orders list is placed on your desk, or is on your desk. It is dated May 14, 2026. We'll go to Senate File number 5073. Senator Putnam.
Thanks very much, Mr. President, members. It's my honor yet again to have an opportunity to talk with you all about farmers and the state of agriculture in Minnesota. You know, members, Mr. President, sometimes when we do this work, I think that we paint with too wide a brush. We neglect to think about the particular circumstances facing the variety of farmers that do this work in the state of Minnesota. Farming is not just about row crops, it's also about that urban farmer doing their best, that specialty crop farmer, that incubator farmer. Farming is as complex as is Minnesota. And attendance to those particularities, I think, are incredibly important. Just last year, we were talking about seed potatoes and the rules around seed potatoes, incredibly important. And we heard from a distance that there were some issues with the provisions we were dealing with. So what do? We went up to Lancaster. We went all the way up to the border with Canada to talk to people who farm seed potatoes, to talk to them about the policy. And the result of that conversation is in the bill that's before you at this moment. The seed potato provisions that are in our finance bill might not seem too significant to you, but they were important to us, important enough to us to drive all the way up there to talk to the farmers and find out how it worked for them. Members, this bill is not overly long. It's got a couple really important provisions in it, though. Provisions that will help the state of Minnesota agriculture and will help the lives of farmers. Just a couple of things to highlight for you, in addition to the seed potato stuff that's pretty important, is we're also going to do some revisions to the down payment assistance program that we have here in the state of Minnesota. As you all know, if you're paying attention, the cost of land is absolutely exorbitant. It's just too expensive to get land to farm on right now. And we have generational, transitional problems. We've got to help more young people, more new people get into farming. And the down payment assistance program is one way to do that. The changes that we've made are we expect people to demonstrate a little bit more clearly their ability to take advantage of the land. So we have some new eligibility requirements to make sure that those who are getting our assistance to buy land are ready to succeed. And we also do some tweaks in the calendar and the application process, because right now, the bulk of the down payment assistance resource, the money that's already there, is going back into the general fund because it's too hard to apply for this stuff. So we fixed that too. A new avenue into agriculture for young people and beginning farmers throughout the state of Minnesota in the down payment assistance program. We also have the Train and Retain program, which is a way of helping those small businesses throughout greater Minnesota, those small meat lockers who can't find anyone who wants to be a butcher. This program will build that workforce for those small meat lockers, for the large meat lockers. It's an opportunity to help people get this skill and do this job and help our businesses and help them improve their lives. And then one last thing that's very important to me in particular is the Farmer Lender Mediation Program. This is a very simple way that the state of Minnesota takes a farmer who's struggling, helps them sit down with their banker and work out a solution for how they can stay on their farm and the bank can still get paid. These are incredibly important provisions, Mr. President and members, and I'm very proud of this bill and am grateful for an opportunity to continue to talk about it with you.
Senator Westrom. Senator Westrom, you have an amendment?
Mr. President, I would offer the A18 amendment.
Senator Westrom offers the A18 amendment. The Secretary will report the A18 amendment.
Senator Westrom moves to amend Senate File Number 5073 as follows. Page 31, after line 22, insert. This is the A18 amendment.
Senator Westrom, to your A18 amendment.
Mr. President, members, as we're getting to the end of session, you always got to look for options and opportunities to move bills that haven't gotten concluded. This is the ag policy language that we passed off the Senate floor, relevant to the ag finance bill that we are working on today as we work on ag policy. Senator Draheim has some key language with cell-cultured meat. There's some other language in here to just improve and help the Department of Agriculture, and so I would like to offer this amendment and add it to this bill as we're 4 days from the end of session. And Mr. President, that's it.
Senator Putnam to the A18 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Westrom. I'm glad for the opportunity to talk about Rich's cell-cultured meat again, but I'm going to pass on that since you already brought it up, and just say I think this is a friendly amendment. It's a good idea to get all this good stuff in one spot.
All right. All those in favor of adoption of the A18, say aye. All those opposed, say no. The A18 amendment is adopted. Any other amendments for Senate File Number 5073 before we go to our third reading? Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I bring the A19 amendment.
Senator Hoffman offers the A19 amendment. The Secretary will report the A19 amendment.
Senator Hoffman moves to amend Senate File Number 5073 as follows. Page 31, after line 22, insert. This is the A19 amendment.
Senator Hoffman to your A19 amendment.
Mr. President, this amendment was a bill that was originally in the agricultural bill and then was taken out. And I'm bringing it back because, Mr. President, paraquat is a highly toxic chemical and it's banned in over 70 countries. Matter of fact, there's a skull and crossbones label on the can. If you inhale it, you die. If you even accidentally take less than a teaspoon of it, you die. And Mr. President, there are reports, research, and this is what blows me away. It's acutely toxic that even that little bit of ingestion has that devastating result. Researchers use, and there's a whole litany of researchers, they use paraquat, Mr. President, in mice and rats in a research laboratory to induce what is known as Parkinson's disease, Mr. President. In that Parkinson's disease, they're using that paraquat to increase Parkinson's in those laboratory animals to study what they could do to help defeat Parkinson's. Mr. President, Parkinson's is not highly genetic. Only 25% of Parkinson's comes from a genetic background, but rather it's about the environmental risk factors, Mr. President, The challenges are common, that Parkinson's is largely predetermined and underscores the importance of reducing the preventable exposures. Paraquat is an environmental risk factor, and that research that I just told you about is there. What this does is it says, members, that we care about our children. We have, everybody in this body, Mr. President, always says, it's about the kids. It is about the kids. Matter of fact, it's so about the kids that if you're even downwind from Paraquat within a mile, just getting that exposure has detrimental effects to you and generations. So it's time Minnesota really does make that statement about public health. And if you truly mean this is about the kids, I would say let's be real about this. So please vote yes on this amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Putnam.
Mr. President, Senator Hoffman, I appreciate the passion and conviction, and I too completely agree that Paraquat's horrible, horrible stuff. That's just reality. It's super, super toxic. That's what it's for. It's there to kill things. That's what Paraquat does. The challenge with this amendment and this concern, there's a couple parts of it. One being its disposition in agriculture specifically. We heard that just yesterday Vermont banned Paraquat, but they exempted its use in agriculture. So Paraquat, for the next, I think, 5 to 10 years. The Paraquat itself is absolutely horribly toxic. The question is, what role does agriculture play in that dynamic? I absolutely support getting rid of the chemical, 100%. But the question then becomes, to what extent does a ban in agriculture solve that problem? And I'm not fully sure one way or the other. That's why you'll note that in our bill as it's currently constructed, there is a study on Paraquat and its usage and the possibility of banning it. I think that's a solid approach when we have some uncertainty here, because there are 400,000 acres of sugar beet farmers in the state of Minnesota. Only 9,000 of those acres use Paraquat and do so on occasion, sporadically, when they have to. Again, I'm not speaking against the ban. I think members should vote their conscience on this. But I am saying that the issue is extremely complicated, especially its implications for agriculture specifically.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to a point of order under Rule 7.4 that this amendment would violate the omnibus appropriation protection that the underlying bill is under, and I'm happy to explain and offer advice to the point of order, Mr. President.
Advice.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment that Senator Hoffman has offered is very similar to Senate File 4160, which was also introduced by Senator Hoffman, and that bill has been given a fiscal note, that there would be a fiscal cost to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture to prohibit the use and sale of Paraquat. And if you look at the language in the amendment, beginning in January 2027, a person may not sell, offer for sale, or distribute a pesticide containing Paraquat. And then there's additional language on prohibited use. And in the fiscal note, it explains that there would be costs to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture for enforcing such a ban. I note here that the dates are extended for the prohibited use in the amendment that is different from the underlying bill that the fiscal note was provided for. However, Mr. President, I would just say that Rule 7.4 applies to a fiscal biennium, and you can't simply put it out of a fiscal biennium to avoid 7.4 protection. Otherwise, you could offer to appropriate $100 million in 2030 and get around Rule 7.4. So I think, given the fact that this amendment language would require MDA to incur costs based on the fiscal note, and that this bill before us has 7.4 protection, I would ask that you find the point of order well taken and rule this amendment out of order.
Senator Hoffman, any advice?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for that response to why the good senator you might think that there is a fiscal note to this. The use of may is permissive to may collect, meaning they may collect that. This was all one thing that we gave to get people to be aware and to be utilizing it. If we would have kept the other language in that was the original amendment, there was a small cost that the Department of Ag said would possibly do, but this is just all permissive about whether or not you want to utilize it. This stays within the rule of this bill, Mr. President, and so I would ask members to vote no on the rule. So thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Westrom, advice?
Mr. President, my advice is that the Rasmussen point of order should be well taken. Mr. President, this is a ban that would direct the Department of Agriculture to be involved in helping stop the sale of this product starting in 2027. There is a fiscal note that indicates cost that we had in committee, and that would put this bill out of balance. We know there's going to be enforcement costs as a practical matter if the ban is going to be implemented in 2027. So I would concur with the Rasmussen point of order, and Mr. President, you should find this amendment out of balance and that it violates Rule 7.4.
Senator Abler.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate my colleague, Senator Rasmussen, except I think he's wrong on this one. I was just reading 7.4. I have not opened this book up yet this year, Mr. President, but I thought, well, I wonder what Rule 7.4 says. I should spend more time, I know, but here I am. Actually, it's pretty cool to get the... Anyway, so it talks about the changing appropriations for a fiscal biennium, which is a 2-year period, which I believe ends in 2027. The ban only starts in January of 2030, which Senator Rasmussen referenced. The only thing that changes is you can't sell it after January 1st of 2027. And so I don't think there's any work for the department to do, and so I don't think it's going to cost any money at all. And I would like a chance to cast my vote that we should not do this and not poison people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Finally, Senator Rasmussen, before I take it under advisement. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to offer another point of specific advice as you consider this. In the A19 amendment, it prohibits sale starting on January 1, 2027. And if you look at the fiscal note, they talk about the agricultural chemical response and reimbursement account surcharge revenue, and the fiscal note states that they would lose revenue going into this account if the product was banned and you wouldn't be able to sell it. And so that is a very clear cost that would have to the agricultural budget that impacts the spreadsheet in front of us. I think it's very clear that there will be a cost of banning paraquat, whether it's cost to the agency or lost revenue into that account. And so I think this is a clear one that has a fiscal impact. I would ask you to find the point of order well taken. Thank you, Mr. President.
Members, I'll take it under advisement. After listening to advice, I find the point of order is well taken. Any other amendments on Senate File number 5073? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 5073, a bill for an act relating to agriculture, modifying agriculture policy provisions, etc.
Third reading. Any other discussions or comments before we vote? And before I recognize Senator Putnam for final comments. Seeing none, Senator Putnam, you have the last word before we vote for final passage as amended to Senate File number 5073.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, members. And a special thank you to Senator Hoffman. I think that this is an issue that we need to talk more about, and I appreciate his diligence in bringing it up. We're not done talking about that. We've got a lot more work to do. But we got a lot more work to do for farmers throughout the state for food access. This is a great step for a lot of people, but we still got more to do. So thank you, Mr. President, members. This is an important bill. It helps people throughout the state, and I hope that you're willing to help them too. Thanks very much.
The Secretary will take the roll for final passage as amended to Senate File number 5073. Members, please vote. Hey, Jessica. Senator Umu Verbatim, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report that Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Port votes aye.
Senator Port votes aye.
Senator Zhang votes aye.
Senator Zhang votes aye.
Senator Pa votes aye.
Senator Pa votes aye.
Senator Gustafson votes aye.
Senator Gustafson votes aye.
Senator Bolden votes aye.
Senator Bolden votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Seeberger votes aye.
Senator Seeberger votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
And Mr. President, Senator Marty votes aye.
And Senator Marty votes aye. All members having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 55 ayes and 10 noes, the bill is passed and is titled agreed to. Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to move a recess to the call of the President. We are anticipating some work coming over from the House. We'll give members 30 minutes notice before we come back. And with that, Mr. President, I move a recess to the call of the President.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if Leader Murphy would have take a question.
Senator Murphy, will you yield for a question? She will yield. Senator Johnson.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Just wondering if we will anticipate seeing any more bills on the floor today.
Senator Murphy to the question.
Thank you, President Champion and Leader Johnson. I anticipate we may see more bills on the floor today, conference committee reports, et cetera.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And after we go into recess, Senate Republicans will be caucusing upstairs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? We heard the Murphy motion for a recess to the call of the president. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now in recess to the call of the president.